club blouse and tie with hands that felt palsied and weak. When she looked up, Indigo was watching her. The girl smiled a little as she passed, grazing Pearl's arm hard enough to let her know she was there. "Everything you hoped for, sweetie?" Pearl stared, a blush of volcanic proportions rolling up from her collar. She saw her next move so clearly, grabbing a handful of Indigo's thick, curly ponytail, taking her down into one of the tables, china and crystal exploding around them, her own fists a pummeling blur. In reality, her face burned and her eyes filled as she made for the patio doors. Damned if she'd let Indigo see her cry. Outside in the dark, Pearl hit the clapboards and sank into a crouch, savoring the sting of the wind. 10 seconds. She could afford a 10-second meltdown. Then chin up, back to work, before that little Nazi Merriweather came out here to see who was wasting club time. 15 minutes later, face washed, cowlick combed down, Pearl delivered the Garrison's entrees. She thought she sensed Cassidy studying her eyes, but that was nothing new. She hoped they didn't still look weepy. From the direction of the kitchen, a faint cheer went up as the busboys caught more victims. "Can I get anyone any?" "No." David's tone was clipped. He didn't look at her as he sawed into his roast duckling. Pearl gave a half bow and departed, careful to skirt Indigo and Reese in case the urge to tackle came on her again. The Garrisons ate. On stage, Steve Mills, who performed cocktail piano standards at the Baby Grand every weekend, launched into "Merry Christmas, Baby." Once the Garrisons had scraped their bowls of creme brulee clean, Steve said into the mic, "Good to see some of our Snowbird members, the Garrisons, joining us tonight on this Christmas Eve. A flourish over the ivories. "Maybe you folks can help me convince Cassidy Garrison to come on up here and play a little something in the spirit of the season?" A momentary hush as people turned to look at the Garrisons. Asking a piano prodigy like 17-year-old Cassidy to play a little something felt like asking Da Vinci to join in a game of Pictionary. Some reluctant applause followed. Sloane whispered to her daughter. From where Pearl stood by the Christmas tree, it looked like she squeezed Cassidy's knee under the table. Placidly, Cassidy pushed her chair back and walked up the risers to the stage, as everyone clapped again, relieved. Slender and erect, Cassidy sat, shook her hair back, placed her fingers on the keys. She may as well have been carved from ivory, cool and flawless beneath the recessed lighting, long pale hair streaming down the back of her midnight blue dress. She didn't look like any 17-year-old Pearl had ever seen, and Pearl had just turned 18 last month. Gloria in Excelsis Deo unfolded from Cassidy's fingertips. She sang in Latin in a clear glass bell voice, words that Pearl couldn't understand, but felt anyway. They made her eyes sting again, this time not unpleasantly, as she stood back among the twinkling lights and German-blown glass bulbs, witnessing what nobody knew would be Cassidy Garrison's swan song. The room didn't breathe until the last note faded into the eaves. This time, the applause was thunderous. People stood. Cassidy said, "Thank you," softly into the mic, and returned to her family who waited, unmoved by yet another command performance from the girl who'd brought down the Boston Symphony Hall at age 8. The Garrisons left soon after that, shrugging on coats made from cashmere and the finest wool, Joseph laughing once, audibly, before the lobby doors closed between them and the night. Gradually, the evening ended, members signing credit slips and wishing one another a Merry Christmas on their way to the coat check. When Pearl went to the kitchen to put in a final dessert order, the kissing ball was gone, and the doors were shut. The help was hangdog, meeting no one's eyes. Merriweather had been here. The fun had been sucked from the premises like sunlight into a black hole. At closing, Pearl waited by her car to make sure Reese was okay to drive. Ski cap on, hands tucked into the pockets of her Carhartt coat, she shifted from foot to foot, watching the back door. When Reese came out, he was leaning on Indigo, much of his face lost in the thick faux fur collar of her coat. Whatever he whispered in her ear made her laugh. Unaware of Pearl in the dark, They passed his car in favor of Indigo's.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.